So you've probably heard about the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie. This weekend, Taylor dominated the box office and set a record for concert movies. Today on the podcast, you'll hear from two Swifties. They'll tell you if the movie lives up to the big hype. I'm Amil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Look, I'm not a Swiftie, I'll admit it, but nonetheless, all weekend long, my Instagram and TikTok feeds were full of celebrities and eager Taylor Swift fans taking in the Eras concert tour movie. And for most of them, for most people, this is as close as they might ever get to a Taylor Swift concert.
To go on a little adventure together, and that adventure is going to span 17 years of music. How does that sound?
The Eras Tour concert film opened this weekend, and it turned the world's biggest pop star into the world's biggest movie star, at least for a few days, and it's already earned more than $125 million. And the merch from the movie, custom cups, popcorn buckets from the movie are being resold on eBay for hundreds of dollars. Amelia, Eqbal, and Eva Zhu both went to see it this weekend. They have not stopped dancing since this segment started. And I want to let you know, I think I have to, just to say this, Amelia is one of the lucky few who scored tickets to see Taylor Swift live. Poor Eva did not, but they're putting those differences aside to both be here with me in studio this morning. Welcome to you both.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, Amelia, now, like I mentioned, I've seen TikToks, I've seen Reels, I've seen Taylor Lautner do front and back flips.
Wish you wouldn't.
I think he's great at it, but it just tells you that this is not just a movie for Swifties. This is obviously not just a movie for both of you. So what was the vibe like in the theater?
In my theater, the vibe, it started out kind of reserved, but like a low hum of sussing out how are people feeling, what tomfoolery is this crowd going to tolerate? Mm-hmm. And so when we got to the theater, my friends had actually made some friendship bracelets. Eva's brought some with her today as well. And so we actually got the crowd going with turning around to the girls behind us saying, oh, do you want to trade some friendship bracelets with us? And then other people saw we were doing that, so we stepped into the aisle. There was a bit of a group, which was very sweet. And the costumes were everything from full-blown You Belong With Me cosplay to just regular people who I think just wanted to go see a movie. So bless them for picking this one this weekend. And then when the movie started, people were fairly well behaved up until the song You Belong With Me, where immediately 90% of the theater was on their feet screaming the lyrics. And it was like I was at a concert. I couldn't see or hear Taylor for that number. So it was really quite an interesting experience to be in theater.
And that's kind of what you want, right? You want that collective communal experience.
100%.
Eva, you're a Swiftie too. You're wearing your gear. You're wearing your friendship bracelets. Now, this is not something you show up to in your sweats, right? This is not a regular movie. There's a ritual. There are accoutrements. Can you just tell me a bit about your experience going to the movie?
I think because I went to an afternoon showing, there were lots of small kids there. And I think the vibe in my theater was not as concerty as Amelia's. Most people sat down. There were a lot of people who were kind of casual fans of Taylor. And then lots of people talked throughout the movie. And I wished they stopped and sang along or something. But I think it was around Fearless, You Belong With Me, where some teenagers decided to. They were like, I really want to dance. They went up to the front. There were maybe 10, 15 people at the front, but most people sat down. More people got up during 1989. We were screaming along to Style. And then afterwards, everybody kind of came back to their seats.
Now, I just noticed that those are not pins on your jacket. You've got friendship bracelets on your jacket. Is this the outfit you wore to see the movie?
Yes. I made this in June because I thought I was going to get to attend the show in Detroit, but I didn't get tickets. So I went looking like one large friendship bracelet. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I do have friendship bracelets to share.
Yes, you both do. I'm getting my first Taylor Swift bracelet of my life.
Would you like one that says blank the patriarchy? I can't say the full thing.
This is so exciting. Thank you. I
Yes,
feel like
and I went for you too,
I'm
Amelia.
experiencing it. So, Eva, you mentioned you hoped you would get to see Taylor live. You did not. So, what did this movie mean to you? To the fact that you're as close to experiencing it as possible.
I think I don't want to say I'm never going to the show. I feel like that's like by saying that I will probably not go to the show. But I think this was like a good expectation of what is like happening at the show if I do get to go. And if I don't get to go, I went to the show with my friend, and it was. I can't say it was like an out-of-body experience, as some people have been saying online. They're like, I've been sobbing. This is incredible. It was a movie. I had fun. And then I came out and I was like, I wish I was at the show instead.
Mm-hmm. So, Amelia, let's put aside the bracelets and the singing and the backflips. It's also just a movie. Mm-hmm. How was it as a movie?
I thought the movie itself was really beautifully done. I thought it was very thoughtfully done as well in terms of what shots they were showing and at which times during which songs. I really thought I got a really great I had the best seat in the house the entire time, which I loved. I got to see the choreo moments that were really impactful. I got to see Taylor's facial expressions during those emotional songs. I got to see the crowd going wild, which is something I also like to look at when I'm at a concert. So I really feel like at every step of the way, I got to see like the most important thing during every single number and really got a sense of what it was like to be there. And just the visuals are stunning. The costumes are stunning. You really get a sense from this movie that every single detail has not gone unnoticed.
And as someone who's already a Taylor Swift fan, do you feel like you learned anything new about her as an artist?
I got a whole new appreciation for her. As an actress, I'll say. She goes through 8 albums during this movie, and you see her shift personas for every single one of those. Like during Reputation, I believe that she wants revenge. During Red, I believe she's happy, free, confused, and lonely at the same time. During Folklore, I believe she's someone else entirely. Like it was really beautiful to see kind of how invested she was and how in the moment she was, considering how big of a deal this is. At one point, they scan the crowd, and you see all those little dots, and I was thinking about every single one of those little dots of bracelets are people who paid hundreds of dollars to see you. So that pressure, it's just amazing how she can perform for 3 hours straight as well. There was only one shot where I was like, oh, maybe she might have been sweating at some point, but you really don't see her ever like out of breath, breaking a sweat. She seems superhuman. It's incredible.
Wow, you're trying to convert me into a Swiftie.
Is it working?
Yeah, you're getting close. But Eva, let's say hypothetically, you're not a huge Taylor Swift fan. But you want to go see the movie, but you're not necessarily taking part in all the rituals. Is this movie going to do anything for people like me?
I think it does. I think, it is it's a nice movie to watch. It is like, it's well shot. It is, longer than a regular movie. But I think the problem with this movie is that I've seen a lot of it online. Like I've seen a lot of her concerts, and even if you're not a Swiftie, you're kind of subjected to her online a lot, and it kind of takes out the excitement from this movie. I think when seeing Barbie or Oppenheimer like a real movie, I knew nothing going in, and I came out and I was like, I learned something. It had a great message, had a theme, had a moral. This felt like I went in. I sang some songs, it was good, and then I came out, and that was kind of it. And the fact that they cut some songs from it, like Cardigan, The Archer, was also pretty disappointing because, it was fairly big songs that they cut, and there were also songs where the cuts into the song, and it felt really weird because I want to see a song from beginning to end, not have one song end and then launch straight into halfway through another song.
Okay, so it's great for the fandom, but the casual viewer could also enjoy and partake in this movie.
Yeah, I think if you see this movie and you leave and you're like, none of that was for me, then you've tested negative for any Swiftyism. Like, she's just not for you. And that's okay, because I don't know what else she could do.
Anything missing, Amelia, that you wish was in there?
I feel like I would have liked to see a little bit of behind-the-scenes footage, even if it was just coming down off the stage, seeing her just drop her stage persona and let go, breathe for the first time, embrace the dancers, something like that. Because I think the trade-off with a concert movie is if I can't be in the room and see what everyone else is seeing in real time, then I would like to see something that those people didn't get to see in real time. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. But in the credits, they did have a blooper reel a little bit. So that kind of filled that gap a smidge.
So I mentioned that Eva, didn't get a chance to go, so this was her way of sort of reliving it. But you have tickets for an upcoming show. Any part of you feel like, oh, if I see this movie, I'm kind of, taking away from that experience a little bit?
100%. I wasn't planning on going to see the movie. When it was announced, I said, oh, cool, that'll be a nice souvenir for me to have when it's on streaming after I see the film, after I see the concert in person. My apologies. But then I had a friend who I'm not going to the concert with ask me if I would go with her. And for me, it was just an automatic yes, because the point of this for me is listening to Taylor Swift alone is great. Listening to Taylor Swift with your friends is everything. And so I really wanted to see that with as many people as I could. And this is one way that I could do that, is share that experience with her, which was very meaningful to me.
Okay, Amelia, you have a song you really want us to play. Can you just set that up a little bit?
Yes. So I've chosen, in honor of 1989 Taylor's version coming out later this month, my favorite album, I've chosen us to go out on Wildest Dreams.
Wildest Dreams. Okay, well, thank you so much to both of you for being here. Let's hear Wildest Dreams.
Out of this town, drive out of the city, away from the crowds. I thought heaven can't help me now. Nothing lasts forever. But this is gonna take me down. He's so tall and handsome as hell. He's so bad, but he does it so well. I can see the end as it begins. My one condition is...
That's Wildest Dreams, Taylor's version by Taylor Swift. Before that, you heard my conversation with two very persuasive Swifties. I'm even wearing my friendship bracelet. Amelia Eqbal is a producer here at Commotion, and Eva Zhu is a producer with CBC News and a freelance writer. Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour is in theaters now. I'm Amil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. I want to play you something. It's from a new series called Black Life, Untold Stories, which drops this Wednesday on CBC Gem. You're about to hear a few of Canada's most cherished hip-hop voices.
You wanna rap against me? I'm a rap girl.
People don't know how hard it was.
We just didn't have the infrastructure at the time.
I came on the scene in a pre-Drake environment. Now everybody wants to be from Canada.
That was from the first episode of Black Life. The new show digs deep into the experiences and contributions of Black Canadians across a wide array of cultural spaces, from hip-hop and sports to slavery and policing. The 8-part series features Black Canadian directors and stars, including Michie Mee and Cadence Weapon, who you just heard in that clip. Nelson George is an executive producer of the series. The American music journalist and filmmaker stopped by recently to talk about celebrating hip-hop's 50th anniversary. You'll hear that on Commotion in the coming weeks. But during that chat, Elamin asked Nelson what inspired him as a Black American to be part of this Black Canadian series. Here's what Nelson George had to say.
7 years ago, I directed a Lifetime movie in Vancouver.
Nice.
And the movie's kind of forgettable.
Okay.
I will admit. But I will say this, that the crew was telling me all these stories of Black Canadian history.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because as an American, flight to Canada. The slaves went to Canada. Hey, we don't know anything that happened on the other side.
What happened after they get there, yeah.
And then I found out.
Yeah.
I found out about what was happening in Alfredville and Nova Scotia and how Hogan's Alley in Vancouver was there's all these stories.
Yeah.
And so one of my collaborators in a lot of my work now and my docs is a woman named Leslie Norville. She works with me on The Ballerina's Tale and a few others, and she's from Toronto. Mm-hmm. So we just sit and talk, and I said, how much of this do you guys know or learn? So we just had this long conversation over a couple of years about Canadian history. And eventually I said, well, Leslie, come on. There's an opportunity. How do you amplify a lot of these stories? And so she led the way, and getting along with a woman named Miranda DePontier, producer here in Canada, led the way to get the CBC to really finance its 8-part series. Mm-hmm. And from my point of view as an American, the interconnected nature of Canadian Black history is so it's connected directly to Black American history or Black American history.
Yeah.
It's connected directly to Caribbean history.
Right.
It's connected to all the colonial countries, all of Europe and Africa. So the mix of people here, the mix of the stories, I think it's a global story. And I don't even think it is the Canadians. I think these as global stories set in Canada.
Right.
We have a Justice Denied, an episode about police brutality and the justice system. There are so many interconnected threads with what happens in America all over.
All the time,
in fact, there's literally one of the stories, most shocking stories in that episode, is that the Mounties reached out to a black agent provocateur who'd been used by the FBI and brought him up to Canada to entrap folks using the techniques he'd learned infiltrating the Black Panthers. That's a real story. There's a gentleman in that episode who actually was in jail almost over 30 years based on being sort of entrapped. So
it's
these
directly
guys,
sort of borrowed from American.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, like, the sense that these things are all connected, that was quite beautiful. And I think that's what's going to be striking for people. They're both going to learn about Canada in a different way and going to learn about the relationship of Canada to America and to Europe and to the Caribbean in a different way.
There's also an episode that you did on Canada's own hip-hop story.
Yes.
Anything you learned in that episode that you're like, oh, this is going to stick with me for a minute?
Well, it's funny because I remember Mishi Me.
Yes.
And she came down to the States.
Yeah.
I think what was interesting, because I remember coming up here quite a bit in the 80s, different meetings, and thinking, well, it's right next to, how come Toronto or these places don't have a bigger scene? I knew more when I was, even in the 90s, I knew more about French hip-hop and UK hip-hop than I did about Canadian
hip-hop,
And I wondered, why is that? And part of it was that the acceptance, ironically, of hip-hop in Europe as an art form was embraced more by the French. It was embraced more by the English, the Germans as well. Germany has a tremendous hip hop history.
Yeah.
And yet Canada, which is across the border, I think there was a certain amount of inferiority complex.
Yeah.
But I also think there wasn't a lot of support institutionally here. And that's one thing the episode really nails.
Yeah.
It's called Northern Beats. And it just nails the fact that how the Juno Awards dealt with hip hop or didn't deal with hip hop. So the fact that Drake is, if arguably the biggest MC in the world, is this weird corollary to years of disdain by the institutions here, because there wasn't a real, I don't know, there wasn't a Def Jam here.
Right.
There wasn't a label that got behind it and had the institutional, and obviously radio didn't want to play it. So that's always a problem. So I feel like that episode really highlights a lot of the great artists here.
Yeah.
While also pointing a finger at the institutions here that didn't support it when it could have actually had a scene that was more that way before Drake that could have crossed over to the States and elsewhere.
The intro, I just want to talk it real. Yeah, I would have miss it, bad girl mill. Read them up. Cause everything I do, you try to underrate me. Foot on your neck or you make tape B. I keep it gully when them out of shape. Your pub one rip. Meet me at the gate. I'm right on.
There's been so much good music on this show today. That's legendary Canadian rapper Mishi Me and her song Bad Gal Bubble. Before that, you heard Elamin Abdelmahmoud chatting with music journalist and filmmaker Nelson George. Nelson George is an executive producer of a brand new documentary series on CBC called Black Life Untold Stories. The 8-part series premieres on CBC Gem this Wednesday and on CBC TV on October 25th. And that's it for the podcast today. Remember, you can listen to any episode of Commotion anytime, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Amil Niazi sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Thank you for listening to Commotion.